Good afternoon, everybody from Hamburg, Germany. Jules, you are, I know, in Cape Town, South Africa, definitely having the benefit of the local seasons here. This webinar is from our short series. Those of you who are regular visitors will remember that last year, many of you have told us, can we do also sort of lunchtime brown bag types mini learnings, 20 minutes, half an hour. This is one of them. And the bottom line of this webinar basically is that we have, or I feel like I have the privilege of working with some of fantastic non-profit leaders in the world. And my colleagues around the world, such everywhere they are, report the same. And, you know, very frequently we get to observe, work with for several years, some of the best leaders out there, be them from the donor agencies, governmental agencies, lots of mid-sized and large NGOs, and greatness can certainly be found even more in the smaller localized NGOs that we work with in across now, you know, what is it now, 40, 50 countries in the world? It's a number or so. So this webinar tries to pick a few of them, not doing them justice at all, and not being representative or claiming to be an exclusive look at all the greatness that there is in the NGO sector, but picking out a couple that hopefully provide you with stimulation and inspiration, and you can cherry pick what to adopt for your own life and for your own career, as well as your own organizations. So here it goes, without much further ado. If the slides work, you know Amsterdam, you know me, I'm going to spare us that in the hope that we are keeping this webinar to a half an hour today, so to comply with the quick brown bag type fashion. Here are some of the observations we want to focus on today. I brought the first one in from my staff, which is to manage your staff's energy, not its time. I'll look into that one briefly. Then my colleague has written a section on 5 ways to lead and care more in this world. So there's empathetic leadership we observed from particular 2 leaders in East Africa and one in South America recently, which really impressed us. Another colleague, Joseph, brought in measure and share it all. Someone who went to absolute towns on KPIs and measuring, but then not directing, but facilitating and sharing it. That really inspired us. And ultimately, maybe we can have enough time in this half an hour for you to bring in some of your experiences. So if you have a great story that you can share in no more than 90 seconds, and Jules, I would ask you to be the guardian of the time here, then please feel free to do so. If not, that's fine as well, of course. Okay, first one in, manage your energy, not your time. Well, basically, this has come from an NGO leader, as I said, in East Africa we worked with, and then it was also copied over to a project we had in South America, where, very simplified, and obviously I'm tied by confidentiality, the number one problem in the organization was time scarceness. It's a limited resource. I'm sure you feel that as well. There is never enough time to do things properly, and we always feel rushed. Well, that leader translated that anecdotal and almost, you know, everyday complaint into realizing where we can manage energy. On the basis that she told us, look, you know, most people, most of my staff really care about their jobs and their duties. And when things become stressful and intense, as they often get, particularly in this amount of crises we have, people respond by putting in longer hours. But even the more, and that is occasionally called for, of course, but with ever more demands, putting in longer hours is not a sustainable answer. Whether we push it from 8 hours a day to 10 hours a day, or then to 11 hours a day, is in this grand scheme of things not making a huge difference, particularly as we all know that productivity goes down and the error proneness goes up. So hours and time are simply a limited resource. So they've deployed, and we found this fascinating, colleagues and actively encouraged colleagues to go beyond the work harder mantra, then put more hours in and do more, and coach staff to do something on energy focus. And very pragmatically, they coach their managers to express and to accept, just as hard, appreciation more frequently. Beyond the, oh, really well done, but specific appreciation. They gave guidance how to appreciate your consortium members, your staff, yourself. They actively built the IT system to reduce interruptions. For example, they switched off emails at certain times during the day or even on certain weekdays. They reduced interruptions by saying we're working with apps in the full screen so people don't look around. They had no mobile phone rooms so that nobody could constantly get hold of on WhatsApp. They taught and brought into the organization healthy eating guides, even providing food every now and then, saying, you know, there's a difference if you eat a bowl of pasta or if you eat some grain and some salad. Same calorie content, same energy, completely different nutrients. Keep doing that for 2 weeks, eating healthy lunches, and you will see a difference. Eat these things, all things we know. They've even, 2 organizations, one in the Eastern US and one here in Europe, included sport into the day, not as a sport per se, but as a team building exercise. So they said, look, we are subsidizing it. You go for your, be it yoga, weightlifting, tennis, running, whatever you want to do that. But it's maybe not kite surfing, that takes over an hour, in case you're wondering. But they include that into the day and said, yeah, we're facilitating it around us. They even provided drop-offs and a journey or Uber credit to take people across the city to those venues. And it really made the difference starting in the 2nd and 3rd week by energy. Very specifically then, that sounds all healthy, but really impressed us. One of our client partner NGOs has subsidized gym memberships, has encouraged staff to go for these midday workouts together. They suggested, but they didn't mandate, that emails are only checked a few times a day. They did go so far as to say, you will probably only get a response between the first day and the last day by email of the hour of the workday. So 9 to 10 and about 4 to 5. In between then, people shouldn't expect responses. The leader went so far as to say, if something needs such an urgent response, then something has happened that went wrong already. So go and talk to them, call them, but don't rely on this constant email interruptions. And they've done energy surveys where they've managed spirit, morality, physical well-being, and emotional well-being in, not quite monthly. I think it was every 6 to 8 weeks. A mini quick survey saying, would you like to do that for yourself? By default, the survey was for the staff member, her or himself, and then with an option to share, and most did share. The result was quite simply inspiring, where people just said, look, work here is done faster, much faster, not necessarily more efficient, not necessarily more pleasurable, but it was done faster. And I think that is something that really spoke to us, and hopefully that inspires you as well. The next one that really caught our eye earlier this year, oops, sorry, why doesn't the slide change? There we go, was a leader here from Europe who said, who went really above and beyond, creating and sharing key performance indicators, KPIs. They wanted to go beyond the anecdotal, beyond the constant feeling that, how we operate, and wanted to get some numbers. But what's lovely about it is they didn't just go to town on it, but they then didn't, set KPIs, which would be the leader's next sort of, almost instinct to say, we need to get better at this and this and this, but they've just asked them to discuss them and be aware of them. So it was more of a constant look into the mirror of how the organization works. And it expressed 2 really good things. Number one, the KPIs weren't personal. They were down to the team. So every team was like, 5 to 10 people strong, and KPIs were created for that team so that nobody individually felt singled out. But it was a small enough team that they felt responsible. If they improved their personal performance, the team KPIs would move up. And what was also very lovely to feel is that those KPIs were discussed amongst all, shared with everybody, and teams set their own improvement targets. So yes, management leadership had an expectation that these things would improve, but by how much and how was left completely to the individual teams. So the KPIs that were created were for mundane things that you can run off any email client, for example. They, for example, looked at how much volume per email does a team get? What's the average response time? You can run a little script behind your email server and easily measure that. It's done, off the shelf. That's no problem. They also analyzed their online diaries in MS Teams or on Google or whatever you operate on. You can just analyze how much of your work time are you spending in meetings. And if that is in the 70, 60%, then, and your job should be, for example, proposal writing, where you need to actually sit down and write, then that the team has finally realized, or by themselves realizing, there's something wrong with that. Other one things were financial indicators, be it from bids submitted to value won, or spent on a project, something you have, but broken down to the implementation team of the project. And the leaders quoted one thing to my colleagues saying, after all this is done, we discussed this over lunch and we thought, well, you have a fairly laissez-faire approach. You invest a lot in measuring these KPIs, but then you don't seem to do much with them. And she responded, well, my role here is to facilitate the improvement process, not to direct it. And I thought that was fantastic because she confronted the teams with those performance metrics, those key performance indicators, and then had a very long leash and said, what do you think? And look and behold, most teams were generally interested to improve and change the way they worked, down to their individual team. That really inspired us. Hopefully, maybe this as well. Sorry, minor cold. Moving on into these 5 suggestions from us then, how to lead better. Well, number one, as you will, as you will expect, is nurture people. I think we need to, this speaks a little bit to managing energy, not time. But the 2 things that inspired me from last year from a leader in Amsterdam, actually, was that he actively tried to kill meetings. Having more and more meetings isn't the answer to perform better. And the other thing that stressed them is he made expectations of a team really, really clear. And interestingly enough, having clear expectations was a stress relief. It did nurture people. Yes, there were expectations to perform. This is work, after all. But having a lack of clarity and wrapping targets in such positive language that the meaning becomes unclear stressed people more than a clear target set them. So here's another person who said, I'm killing more meetings and I'm making expectations clear. And that really nurtured people there. The other one I would suggest is diversify your income. So this is more on the financial side. We've seen this time and time again, but the NGOs that sort of keep relying on a few institutional or a few donors only, like 3 to 4, and then they don't quite go bankrupt, but they never scale, and they also then dither away. And they're caught in this race to the bottom on unrestricted income. They're the ones who are least diversified. We know this income diversification is a holy grail of many NGOs, and it's important. I've been saying this since the 90s, but the chickens are coming home to roost here. And a good and concrete target that we always recommend is grow your key donor. So grow the donors you have. You don't want to have them static. That's very important. So you're becoming more important to the donors you already have. And add at least 2 new donors per year. That seems to be a pretty good concrete goal that we would recommend to all NGO leaders to have an active diversification going on there. That will likely result in a more diversified funding base. Finally, go agile, but not across all. When you really need to get some work done, concentrate on that. So what really needs to happen and what do we not need to happen? What can we outsource? What can we just drop? What can we now move over to AI? That's another new frontier of optimization. And then decide in some areas of your organization, an agile way would not only make the thing go faster, but also improve your employment proposition. So again, it goes back to managing energy. Do we really need to manage a process, or can we just let our staff get on with it? And if they decide to do it this way, that's fine, as long as it works. We had lots of webinars, and Jules, I believe they're all online. Is that correct? I get a hat nod here. We're having lots of webinars about how to go agile. Maybe revise them if going agile is something that you think you should be pushing on. Of course, it's not about being agile, non-agile. Most organizations are agile to some degree. The question is, are you agile in the right areas to the right extent? Finally, it's learning. Again, not massively new, but a client has summarized it for us last year's as collect evidence, analyze the data, create insight, and be aware of the foresight coming from it. So go from collection to analysis to insight to foresight. And I thought that was a great way of putting it. And if you are talking a lot about knowledge management, if you're talking about learning as an organization, but you don't have a proper process in place at each 4 stages, collection, analysis, insight, and foresight creation, then something is broken. Then it may be just lip service. So have a think about that, saying, how do we collect our data? How do we analyze it? Is there enough time, resources available? Do we generate insights? And that's, analysis to insight are 2 different things. One is a lot of data. The other one is the lessons we can draw from it. And what of those lessons we've learned are likely relevant for our immediate future, i.e. what should we communicate, which is even less than what we've analyzed. And last but not least, take care of yourself in order to love others. It's a little bit, on the non-financial part, but all of us experience a lot more stress these days. Life is very intense. The planet is heating, climate tipping points are likely, making it even bigger. There's war. We just come out of pandemic. There's every possibility of another pandemic at some point soon. So with all this stress, the question, however, that's very rarely asked is, did we also upgrade our self-care? So a bit of insight reflection. With more stress, what do you do to take care more of yourself? That could be whatever you want. How do you decompose? Small tip, it's very unlikely going to be the consumption of another movie or Netflix or social media. It's more likely to be about nutrition, movement, and social interaction. So find some friends, eat with them, and do some sport. And if that used to be enough, then now upgrade it, because we're certainly heading into a more stressful time. That, I believe, is mostly it, other than the fact that this, to share with you the EMP Sprints again. Now, sprints are not a consultancy, and they are the way to get EMP advice about solving a problem in a short time with your team. A lot of times we face an aggregate of problems. We are all aware of it anecdotally around the coffee machine, around the water cooler, but we don't quite know how to tackle it. So the sprint is a format we've used successfully for a number of years now. It's a 1 to 3 day event, looking at a particular issue, solving it with your team in a sort of pressure cooker, taken out uptime. It's pretty cheap to run as well. For Amsterdam partners, it's actually free of charge. So if you are an Amsterdam partner already, you can draw that down. Please do. And where we take a challenge on any of these 5 things, for example, income diversification or work de-stressing or employment propositioning, boosting, or whatever it is you want. And we draw a milestone plan towards its solution. Hopefully that helps. In case you're asking, if you're not an Amsterdam partner, the costs are likely going to be around 5,000 euros. If you're an Amsterdam partner, it's free of charge to you. And Jules, you want to say something on the training course, is that right?
Yes, Thank you, Chris. So we have our MZN international training courses. They have just been reset up since COVID. We have been inundated with registrations and sign-ups. Our next course is next week, actually, in London. I think there may be space for 1 or 2 more if you are in the area and would love to join the NGO Financial Sustainability course. It's a slightly shorter course. Please do look on our website under training courses. We could potentially squeeze 1 or 2 more people in. By the end of this week, we will have the final dates set up for 2024. So if you check back onto our website, you can see all our training courses and the dates will all be set out by the end of this week. And then our upcoming webinars, we only have 3, I think maybe 4 more webinars this year. So the next one is how to partner with a corporate or a business. And then a very popular webinar is getting your funding strategy right. And then we'll have our final quarterly funding webinar, and then it's the end of the year. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. So this was within time, 20 minutes, as promised. I'm going to stop the slides presentation and